Twitter is basically the place where ideas go to be murdered. We all know now that it's just not somewhere for debating, is it? No one ever went on Twitter and said, hey, fancy debating this idea? Because the first reply you're going to get is, no, die, and all your family die. It's people should have learnt by now not to say anything, not to challenge any ideas. It just ends up being a massive plop storm. But this one of all is interesting. Indian food is terrible tweet sparks hot debate about racism. That's right. You can't even criticize culinary taste. You can't even say, oh, that's not that good, without being accused of racism these days. Of course, but it's on Twitter. If you'd said it on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, if you'd said it on Facebook, Facebook would have asked you if you wanted to boost the post for £10 to reach an extra 2,400 people. You know what I'm saying? It's just not the place for it, my friend. Anyway, a tweet from a US academic calling Indian food terrible has sparked a hot debate about cultural intolerance and racism in international cuisine. That's right. Racism stems as far as tasting food. So Indian food is terrible and we pretend it isn't, said International Affairs Professor Tom Nichols. Critics called his comment a tasteless generalization. The remark led to a wider discussion of the immigrant experience and how many in the US have experienced racism in relation to food. I don't know. If you're going to hate on someone, if you're going to hate on a race because of the food that they eat, that's it's pretty mental. Unless, of course, that nation is well known for, eating babies. Then you could probably criticise that. Or if there's a nation that's their most famous dish is, toilet soup, then you probably, you could definitely, see why someone would hate a whole nation for eating toilet soup or eating babies. So Mr. Nichols, who teaches at the US Naval War College in Rhode Island, posted his opinion after another Twitter user had asked for controversial food opinions. Right. What a stitch. Look at that. So someone asked for controversial food opinions. And the guy says, I think people often pretend to like non-American cuisines as a way of showing sophistication. Might have a point there. I'm honest enough to say that my mostly Irish taste buds can't handle whatever it is that is called Indian in the US and UK. You may all continue with your outrage now. So he even said, continue with your outrage. He was asked for a controversial opinion. He gave one, which isn't that controversial. And then he asked for outrage. And he got it. This is quite bizarre. But he didn't think he'd be part of an international news story, though, did he? No, he probably didn't. Because he's probably that naive and thinks that news should be newsworthy. But he's wrong. He's totally wrong. He probably thought, well, who cares about my opinion on Indian food? Well, news outlets do. Because apparently that is news. No one cares. I just hate to break it to you. If you have a missing child, or you have a loved one and there's an unsolved murder, and stemming back years of mystery, they're not going to find your kids, and they're not going to serve your kids, your kid or your loved one's murder, because no one cares. This is what people apparently care about now. Well, this is what the media care about. So I hate to break it to you, it's just not newsworthy. Now, if you sent out a tweet that could outrage a bunch of people and sort of tie it in with your missing kid, they might find them. In fact, why don't you tweet out that your kid's a massive racist? Say your kid hates Moroccan food, thinks it's absolute filth, And then they'll probably be able to track your missing kid down so they can berate them and probably beat them up. So maybe there's a tactic to find your missing child there. Give it a try. Anyway, critics were quick to respond. Do you have taste buds? Asked celebrity chef Padma Lakshmi. Imagine going through life this flavourless, wrote another comment. Alright, this is what happens a lot with people and their food. It's like going, oh, do you not like taste? As if you're so arrogant to think that, your food is just nothing but taste. Well, there's so much flavour in our food. Why wouldn't you like our food? It's just so flavourful. Now, look, I'm going to break it down to you like this. My girlfriend's Thai. She doesn't like Indian food. She really is very much against this. She just smells it and goes, nah. I think she's eaten a little bit. So I've said to her, funny enough, this week I was like, I'm going to take you out for an Indian, and you might enjoy it. I say because it's very delicious. It's not for everybody, all right? Lots of other cuisines have flavour. It's just what flavour do you like? Macaroni and habanero ice cream has a lot of flavour going on, doesn't it? Doesn't necessarily mean it's good, though, does it? Do you know what I'm saying? All right? Pregnant women who have weird cravings, there's lots of flavours going on in their mouths, doesn't necessarily mean that those flavours are for everybody, or in fact good. So, the arrogance of people going, oh, do you not like taste? Your food is so bland, do you not like taste? And I would say this, look, I eat Thai food on a daily basis, and there's a lot of spice, but I can do. But it hasn't had any adverse effects on me at all. Do you know what I mean? It's not just because I'm hard as nails. It's just it doesn't. But I tell you this, and I do love Indian food, and I crave it sometimes. But I tell you this, if I was eating that every day, there would be some adverse effects on me. Okay. Because we're talking about Indian cuisine that we've been eating. And we all know, India's a massive place. And there must be so many different cuisines that we know nothing about. But that's because, it wasn't exported, was it? Right. So, Preet Bharara, it's a good name, a former prosecutor from New York, tweeted, Tom, I'll take you to a place we'll need to bring the country together, Butter Chicken Summit. See, there's a reasonable person sending out a tweet. Doesn't happen. It probably happens quite often, but it doesn't happen often that it'd be quoted, though. So, hats off to quoting something well-balanced. Others, said Mr. Nichols, have probably tried less than 1% of all Indian dishes, which come from a hugely diverse country. India is very diverse. I don't know if you've ever been to India. It's ethnically diverse. It's a multicultural melting pot. Mr. Nichols later admitted that he had only ever eaten at Indian restaurants in the US and the UK. Dude, where in India have you eaten? 1 billion fans can't be wrong. No, it's just 1 billion people that are used to eating that food, isn't it? What are you talking about, 1 billion fans? If you're subjected to the same thing all the time. When I was growing up, we used to have this. My mum had the same meal plan laid out week by week. Monday was cold cuts and jack of potato. Tuesday was some sort of casserole. Wednesday, I can't remember Wednesdays. Thursday was spaghetti bolognese. Week in, week out. We were subjected to it. So, I wouldn't say, we're all fans. It's just what you eat, isn't it? Come on, you suck milk out your mum's tits when you're a kid. It doesn't mean you're a fan of it, does it? It's just what happens. Anyway, Mr. Nichols' initial tweet led to a wider discussion about the way food plays into the immigrant experience. Now, you see, this could be... You could look at this on the one hand and go, wow, well, I never thought a debate about food could lead to such deep discussion and touch on such pressing and, big issues. But on the other hand, you go, calm the fuck down, please. All right? Not everything is about racism, okay? If your mum cooks slop and it's disgusting, and your mum's from the Congo, Doesn't mean we're racist, that we don't like your mum's slop. Your mum's a terrible cook, and you should tell her. Anyway, some noted that in the US, international food, sometimes called ethnic food, is often marketed as cheap eats. Therefore, many people are more familiar with pared-down, Americanized street dishes that lack authentic ingredients. That could be very subjective as well. There is no Indian food. Well, that's true. I mean, most Indian food in the UK is actually Bangladeshi in origin. See, I know stuff. Because you come out in Thailand, there's a lot of Indian places around here, but loads of them are like vegetarian places. Ugh. Now, you want to talk about disgusting food? Vegetarian food. That's disgusting. Also, there is no curry flavour. There is no chai tea, she added, referring to the fact that chai is simply a word meaning tea in Hindi, and curry is a style of dish rather than flavouring. Alright, you're going very deep. You need to brush that chip off your shoulder. It's not been seasoned very well, and it's growing manky. You've got a rotten fungus. There's this growing chip on your shoulder. You need to get rid of it. It's disgusting. Can't be walking around with dead food on your shoulder. White people dunking on Indian food sucks, but white people fawning over it sucks too. It's the same feeling I had as a kid when white women would fawn over my mum's beautiful saris while also talking to her as if she was a child. Maybe it happened when she was a child, I don't know. You like our trappings, but you don't like us. Now, there's someone with a chip on their shoulder too. You're making a lot of presumptions here about people. Maybe they talk to your mother like a child because maybe she's got the brain of a child. I don't know. Maybe she looks like a child. What do we know? We don't know anything about your experience. Well, you shush. Others point out how smell and flavour have long been prevalent in racist comments towards minorities and accuse Mr. Nichols of intolerance. Wow. Okay. Right. One, there's definitely something a lot of people say about Indians because of the food is pungent smelling. It's like when you cook. Have you ever cooked an Indian dish? There's like about 15 ingredients. Powders I'm talking about for starters, like the base of a curry or whatever. It's like putting some of this and some of that. Fucking, do you know what I mean? It's like Jesus. What? You look in your spice cupboard. Yeah, I am that kind of. I have a spice cupboard. I'm balling, all right. Don't hate on me because you haven't got a fucking spice cupboard. And you're like going, well, I haven't got half of this shit. I've got to go to fucking Tesco's, you pricks. So there's a lot of aroma going on. And this you do, in customer service roles, I had to deal with some comments from a customer about a driver they had. Yes, it was a transfer service, okay? And what he was saying is that he stinks. And I was like, all right. And I told the driver, I said, look, he sounds like a bit of a racy piece of shit. I said, do what you want. You can dump him on the side of the road and we won't refund him if you want. Probably did refund him in the end anyway. This does happen. But also, your food smells a lot like pow. It really is whiffy. So come on. First generation American Syra Rao wrote, having white people trash Indian food is extremely triggering as an Indian who has been told that I smell weird, that my food smells weird, and Indians on the street which poop on the street, which is why everything we are smells bad, right? You might got told that because if you cook, that is a thing that happens. But the whole pooping on the street, look, all I know is everybody I know who's been to India has told me about people pooping on the street. Which makes me think, like, well, maybe people do genuinely poop on the street a lot. Or maybe they just do it in the tourist areas where all the foreigners go. Maybe it's just for the tourists, to give them something to talk about. Going, did you know, darling, they poop on the street? Go to India, it's a marvellous place. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know about the whole pooping on the street thing. As the story drew attention in Indian media, the hashtag #MyFavoriteIndian Food started trending. US presidential candidate Kamala Harris, whose mother's family hails from South India, shared a teaser for a cooking video with comedian Mindy Kaling using the hashtag. Brilliant, because that's what you want from your presidential candidate, is a cooking video. definitely what we need. This is why they won't ever find your missing kids. But some foodies dismiss the row outright, saying simply, I see someone on Twitter has racist views on Indian foods. Well, more for me then. Like, just because you don't like food and you think it's overrated doesn't mean you hate everybody. Good God, man. You know, has it come to this? Others took similar issue with the controversial food treat from ABC senior reporter Terry Moran, who said Chinese food is tired, it's boring, gloppy, oversalted, and utterly forgettable. That's not bad. One person replied to this tweet, "Oh Lord, here we go again with bubble-inhabiting white guy announcing his pathetic ignorance of an entire cuisine and its myriad regional varieties. He's talking about the food that he's experienced. Will you calm down, please?" And also, I hate to break it to you, India, China, you got less victim points now. You know, in the you know, on the victimhood scale, you know, say you were on the victimhood stock exchange and you'd invested in Indian and Chinese victimhood. Well, that stock needs to be sold before it becomes worthless, because the victim points, you know, there's loads of Indians out here acting more entitled than English people. So, you know, like, seriously, they do. Like, also, all you're tarnishing the whole nation. It's like, look, if I can blanket Brits abroad, I can blanket Indians abroad as a general rule of thumb, okay? Do you know what? You're all acting, you know, majority of you acting a bit entitled. You know, it's one of the world's fastest growing economies. China, obviously, as well. So, like, you know, your victim points, it's getting low. All right, calm down. You know, we're not going to feel as sorry for you as we once did. One person replied to his tweet, "Oh Lord, oh yeah, there we go, blah, 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 blah. If you talk about American Chinese food, then you are correct. Like a lot of US franchise food, it's unedible muck, but usually cooked by Chinese people. If you're talking about food from mainland China, then you're 100% wrong, and maybe you can give yourself an uppercut." All right, you want him to punch himself in the face. But you do know about the practices that go on in China when it comes to food, you know, reclaiming oil of sewers and stuff. And, you know, certain regions. There is kind of a saying about eating animals in China. It's like, if the sun shines on its back, you can eat it, which technically means, you know, people who, well, toddlers, I suppose, not toddlers, but, you know, babies, you know, crawlers, because they're still on four legs technically. So you can eat babies. Asian food lovers rounded on Moran, accusing him of having only eaten at takeout restaurants and never tasted authentic cuisine from the most populated country on earth. Well, yes, most likely, but you should have thought about that. Like, you could have worked that one out. It's not like you went on a culinary tour of India and went, "Oh, well, I'm going to try all this food I hate." You know, come on. Yeah. But there you go. There you go. I say we should just go around slating everyone's food and just claim our food is the best. Because that's what everyone does anyway. I don't know if you noticed. I mean, even in Italy, like every little village has its own recipe for something very simple, like a simple pasta dish, but with a slight tweak on it, and saying, "Mama's is the best." Like, that's how it goes down. Like, what is this? What do you want now? We're going to go to war over food? You nutters? Do you know what food is? Absolute slop. And that I don't like? There's not many. I don't really think. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I just love it all, don't I?